hour is the best return on your time? And for most people, the answer is clearly no. A 2019 study from Harvard Business Review found that workers who invested time in skill development saw earnings increases of approximately 10 to 20% over 5 years. 15 hours a week invested in learning a high-value skill, coding, data analysis, sales, negotiation, could increase a $60,000 salary by $6,000 to $12,000 annually permanently. That's a far higher return than any gig economy side hustle will ever provide. Health cost is equally significant and almost never factored into side hustle math. Chronic sleep deprivation, which affects the majority of people working full-time jobs plus side hustles, has been linked to decreased cognitive function, weakened immune systems, increased risk of chronic disease, and reduced workplace productivity. A 2022 study from the Rand Corporation estimated that sleep deprivation costs the U.S. economy over $400 billion annually in lost productivity. On an individual level, working an extra 15 to 20 hours per week means sleeping less, exercising less, and recovering less. The productivity you lose at your primary job, the sick days you accumulate, the long-term health problems you are seeding, these are costs that will come due eventually, and they will dwarf whatever you earned delivering pizzas on Tuesday nights. The third invisible cost is cognitive cost, the mental bandwidth consumed by managing a side hustle that is no longer available for higher value thinking. Research on decision fatigue shows that humans have limited cognitive resources each day, and every decision depletes that resource pool. Managing a side hustle means making dozens of additional decisions daily. Which gigs to accept, how to route deliveries, when to work, how to handle difficult clients, where to find new customers. Each decision burns bandwidth that could otherwise be spent on strategic thinking about your career, creative problem solving at your main job, or investment research that could generate passive returns. The person grinding a side hustle is often too mentally depleted to pursue the opportunities that would actually change their financial trajectory. They're so busy working in their life that they have no capacity left to work on their life. And here's the cruelest part of the side hustle squeeze. The people who can least afford to waste time on low-return activities are exactly the people most likely to be squeezed. If you are working a side hustle because your primary income is not enough, you're probably exhausted, probably stressed, probably not in an optimal position to evaluate whether your side hustle is actually helping or hurting. You see the deposits in your bank account and you feel productive. You don't see the invisible costs accumulating, the health declining, the opportunities missed, the main career stagnating because you have no energy left to pursue advancement. The side hustle feels like a solution. For many people, it's actually part of the trap.
Now, you might be thinking that not all side hustles are created equal, that some genuinely do build wealth and create opportunities. And you are right. The distinction is between low-leverage side hustles that trade time for money at low rates and high-leverage activities that build assets, skills, or systems. Driving for Uber is low leverage. Your income is directly capped by your available hours. The rate per hour is low and getting lower as more drivers compete, and you build nothing of lasting value. Creating a course, building a software product, or developing a content platform is potentially high leverage. The initial time investment can generate returns that persist and compound long after the work is done. But here's what most people do not realize. High leverage opportunities typically require exactly what the side hustle squeeze eliminates: significant uninterrupted time, mental clarity, creative energy, and the financial runway to wait for returns that are not immediate. The person grinding 20 hours per week on gig work to make rent does not have the bandwidth to build a high leverage asset. They are stuck in low leverage work precisely because they lack the resources to pursue anything better. And the low leverage work consumes the time and energy that might otherwise create those resources. This is the squeeze: working more to earn less, too exhausted to escape, watching the side hustle promise of financial freedom become another form of financial prison. Here's how to actually evaluate whether your side hustle is building wealth or draining it. First, calculate your true hourly rate by tracking every minute spent on side hustle activities, not just the paid work, but the unpaid administration, commuting, waiting, learning, and recovery time. Divide your actual net income after all expenses by your total hours. If that number is below your primary job's effective hourly rate, you are going backwards. Second, audit the invisible costs by honestly assessing how your side hustle affects your sleep, health, relationships, performance at your main job, and availability for higher value opportunities. These costs are real, even if they do not appear on a ledger. Third, apply the replacement test. If you spent the same hours on skill development, networking, or rest, would you likely see a higher return over the next 5 years? For most low-leverage side hustles, the answer is yes. Fourth, identify your escape velocity, the point at which your side hustle becomes high leverage rather than time for money. If you cannot articulate a clear path from where you are to passive or scalable income, you are not building an asset. You are just working a second job at a lower rate than your first one. Right now, you probably see yourself as someone who is hustling, grinding, doing what it takes to get ahead. That identity feels productive and virtuous in a culture that celebrates busyness as a proxy for value. But there's another way to see it. You might be working harder than ever while building less wealth than ever, exhausting yourself on low-return activities that feel productive but actually consume the resources you need to pursue high-return opportunities. The side hustle economy promised financial freedom. For many people, it delivered financial treadmills that spin faster and faster without going anywhere. Kevin is still driving for Uber. He's too tired to think about alternatives and too committed to the sunk costs of his vehicle depreciation to walk away. He tells himself he'll figure out something better next month, but next month never comes because he's always too busy working to think about how to stop working. The side hustle squeeze has him exactly where it wants him, generating $9 per hour for platforms that take 30% while he slowly burns through his car, his health, and his chance at something better. Stop measuring your hustle by how busy you are. Start measuring it by what you're actually building. I've spent way too much time thinking about this stuff, so you don't have to. If this changed how you see your side hustle, hit that like button and subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.